My name's Sergio. I'm here with more MLG Vegas coverage for Over.gg, and this time I'm with NRG's Dummy. So, you guys made a roster swap most recently during Apex. It was like just before your last game of the group stage, and before that you were playing with Gods and Pooks, and now you're playing with Numlocked. I can't get Seb Barton out of my head. With Numlocked and Clockwork. So, how has that gone for you? Obviously, when you were playing in Apex, you hadn't had any time to practice, but how has the overall thing been?
It's a lot. I don't know. It's a bit up and down. When we first came back to NA, it was actually looking really good. We were running certain comps that really fit our play style. Like we're a really aggressive team, and it really worked well with like our hero pool. But then 4tank came around, and now we're definitely on the down. But I think we're picking it back up. We're kind of learning the meta just in time for MLG. So I think we're doing a lot better again.
When you guys made the switch, that was over when you were playing in Korea, and you had an opportunity to play against all of the Korean teams in Scrim. What's the difference like having come back to North America?
They're just really good at using. I mean, it's really cliche, but their teamwork is really good. Like they're really good at coordinating plays. They have a lot of set plays. They have a lot of different hero synergies, like in coordination with different skills that NA teams and EU teams don't even do. But in general, it is definitely, it's not overhyped, the Korean level of play, but it's not like they're like a lot better at everything. They're just a little bit better at certain aspects that, in a way, throw us off.
You guys were talking. You just said there that you favor a more aggressive style, and the tanks aren't really what you would like to play with.
Not.
How have you found the patches affecting the play styles that you're able to perform on, and what your thought process has been coming up against the tanks?
Well, it definitely just makes a lot of our comps like useless. Like we can't run a lot of comps that we like to run, like Genji Tracer dive comps and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's just three tank soldier, or like 4 tanks, and that's really just not in our comfort zone. Like those aren't our comfort heroes. We can play them, but they're not. You're just gonna get a lot more value out of like a Enigma Tracer or a Genji from Seagull, etc. But it's just you can't really run all those heroes right now in a comp. It just doesn't work. You don't have enough damage because Ana heals tanks way too easily, and tanks actually do a decent amount of damage in this game. So the DPS doesn't offset the amount of damage and healing that comp can do.
You brought in Numlocked into the team, and he was originally going to be playing on Lucio and main calling for you. So, and then now you've switched it over so that he's actually back on his old role of tank, and Milo's now playing the Lucio. But ignoring the switch that you've had to make in terms of the roles that they've been playing, what's the calling situation like within your team?
The calling is really good. It's more like the listening that's the issue. We've been working on it a lot, and I think we've definitely improved. But so from day one in Apex, the biggest issue is that no one was really conditioned to listen to a caller like Seb or Numlocked and listen to it unconditionally, like just do whatever he says. We worked on it for a while, and we definitely started listening to him more. But there are also a few things that Seb wasn't calling that Enigma calls. Like so, after a while, we had to bring Enigma in to do pretty much like half the calling, and Numlocked is just doing, just micro stuff like engagements, focus fires, the approach, like just all the calls that you need like during a team fight or maybe like right before a team fight. But Enigma keeps track of like pretty much like the big picture, just what ults they have, what ults they're going to use next fight, what ults we need to use, keeping track of ults in general, although everyone contributes to that obviously. And just like the direction we want to go as a team, like in game and even out game. So we kind of have 2 leaders right now, and it is working out for the best. It's definitely a lot better than just Seb calling or just Enigma calling. And right now, we're still having issues with kind of being focused enough to really listen to the calls though. because it does get really chaotic. The way our playstyle is like super scrappy, and we just take all kinds of fights all over the map. And sometimes Seb will call something, or Enigma will, and just people are not listening, or they don't think it applies to them because they're on some other, you know, they're doing something else, which is inherently also already really bad, that everyone's so scattered. But yeah, so that's our biggest issue right now, is like we're super scattered, we're not on the same page, and sometimes we just don't listen to the main calls.
As well, you did switch the roles around. So he went from being the Lucio to moving over to the tank and Milo. So what was the thought process behind that shift? Why was that necessary for you guys?
Well, Milo was actually the one who brought it up. Like he actually just really dislikes playing Reinhardt. Doesn't really fit his style. He brought it up before we even played a match in Korea. And then we kind of, I don't know, it's not that we didn't really think about it, but it's just like, it didn't make sense at the time. Like we haven't even tried the actual lineup we wanted yet. But then after the first match, then we're like, okay, you know, let's give it a shot. We played a few scrims with it, and it definitely felt a lot better. As far as like thought process, I guess Seb was brought in just for his assertive calling, and you know, it really makes sense for the Rein player to have that. And Milo doesn't really, he's not really someone that's just like going to tell anyone what to do. He does make a lot of good calls, but it's more like information. And Seb will just tell someone, you know, focus this, or like he'll tell people what to do. And it made a lot more sense on Rein, especially the way we were playing, or just in tank in general, like Winston, Rein, like focus fires and stuff.
When you guys came back to North America, you had a bit of a break, but then there's been the Winter Premier going on. Mm-hmm. So I've seen you guys playing in that, and you had some decent results, but some that didn't go as well. So can you tell me a little bit about your experiences playing in that tournament?
So the main issue there was we were, for a couple weeks since we were back in NA, we were practicing completely, I mean, pretty much just wrong comps. Like we were having a lot of success with them in scrims versus like a lot of the best teams in NA. But the issue is, after the first day of NGE, everyone saw Kingdom run the 4 tank. They saw the success they got from it, and everyone just started using it the next day, and we were just not ready for that. Like a lot of our comps were fine against the meta, or the previous meta, where it was just 3 tank, 1 DPS. But once people started running 4 tanks, we just didn't have the damage with what we were running. So we just we were reluctant to adjust it first, or rather, we were focused on adjusting execution first before completely rehauling like the comps that we were running. Like we practiced for 2 weeks, certain playstyles and certain comps. So, you know, obviously the first reaction we felt was we wanted to move forward with was just changing execution, see if maybe we could run those comps against 4 tanks. First 2 days, it clearly just wasn't happening. And we just changed up the playstyle a little bit. It still was pretty aggressive, and it wasn't 4 tank, but it made a lot more sense than what we were running before. And we definitely saw a little bit more success with it. We took FaZe out in the last qualifier, and then we ended up falling to Fnatic, who, you know, not to like make excuses, but a lot of the comps that we adjusted towards just weren't good on the map pools that we got versus Fnatic, which is another, you know, kind of issue that people had with the tournament, was we couldn't draft. Like we just had preset map pools, and those map pools just didn't happen to be as good for our comp. Or, I mean, Route 66 was fine, but definitely Ilios just wasn't working out. And I mean, Route 66 was definitely the closest in that series. But yeah, I mean, the preset map pools on top of us kind of just like running a non-meta comp, we didn't really, it really limits us. We're definitely adjusting to address that, but we're definitely moving in the right direction, because before we were doing something completely unorthodox, and just it was just never going to work in the 4 tank meta.
You guys are kind of known for your unorthodox compositions. You tend to go against the grain of what other people are playing. Is that something that you sit down and decide, and you're deliberately trying to counter what other teams are running rather than just running it themselves? Or is it just something to do with the heroes you're more comfortable on? What's the thought process behind that kind of stuff?
It's a lot of, it's a combination of all that. We we definitely don't just decide like we're just going to do something different just to be different. We don't like sit down and think of it like that, but I think we just have a different approach. We want a play style that fits our players, and we just end up organically gravitating towards certain heroes and certain strategies that end up being a lot different than what other teams do, especially in a meta like this. It's just not really like no one's thought process on this team would really gravitate towards a 4 tank. Like we would never start playing that comp before anyone else, because we're just not going to think that way. That's just not how we think. Whether that's good or bad, it's obviously not for me to say, but we're always just going to be thinking about something really aggressive, something where we take a lot of team fights, like quick, fast-paced team fights, not like a one giant, like long, drawn-out team fight or anything like that. Like it doesn't fit our style. So it happens pretty organically. We don't really think about it like that, but it's just our thought process and approach to the game.
You guys said at the beginning of the interview that you were starting to come back on the up.
Yeah.
And you are in what most people would consider the slightly easier group of the two, because you've not in with Envious and Fnatic.
Yeah.
So you've got Liquid, you've got Cloud9, and you've got FaZe. You're facing Cloud9 today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this group? Are you on the up enough that you have a decent shot of actually making the playoffs here?
I mean, both groups are really hard. I would definitely agree. Like if I had to choose, I would definitely choose this group. But it's not like it's an easy group. It's C9's great, FaZe, Liquid, and Liquid is definitely not. They were kind of in the same sort of slump that we were. So people going into this that are watching at home, they might think that that's just that team just doesn't even have a chance to get out of groups. Just like they think that we don't either. But Liquid's doing really well in practice. Obviously that's not going to hold a whole lot of weight compared to how people show up at LANs, but they are doing really well in practice. They did solidly in all the qualifiers for NGE. I mean, they did better than us or FaZe, right? So I think the group is actually all like really close, and with Cloud9 being like a slight favorite. So I don't know. It would definitely be a lot scarier to be in the same group as Complexity, Fnatic, and Envious, but I still think it's a really tough group to get out of, for any team really. Like even Cloud9, even FaZe, Liquid, it's a tough group.
What are you going to have to be able to do in order to get out of the playoffs? What has to go right for you to be able to make a deep run in this tournament?
We just have to execute what we've been planning. We've been working a lot with our coach, Oplayed, to really prepare. That's the one. I don't know if I would say benefit, but like that's the one thing that we can really utilize about the fixed map pool is we can do a lot of preparation, and we do have a coach to do that. We don't have to spend that time as players to prepare for the other teams, and prepare the game plan for each map. Obviously we have input in it, but he can spend a lot more time while we focus on our game. So, and while he analyzes, our strengths and weaknesses objectively. So I think we just need to execute what what us as a team plan out. I think we have a good game plan for every team and every map. We're really well prepared with the map pool. Again, I obviously just would prefer no map pool or preset map pool, but with the current system, I think we prepared pretty well.
I don't normally offer people the opportunity to do this, but I've seen you selling out all over the place on the NRG Twitter. So do you want to sell out, Dummy?
All I'll sell out which is like pretty redundant, but is over GG. It's a really great site, and you and Carl honestly like do a lot of work. Like it's really cool to see the site's turning out really well, and obviously I hope it's really successful.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck for your games later on. Hope you get out of the group.